The night the Alpha King chose her, the moon burned red. Lyora stood at the edge of the great hall, fingers clenched in the rough fabric of her gray Omega dress. The walls of Blackfang Palace towered high above her, carved from obsidian stone and lit by hundreds of floating flame orbs. Every wolf in the kingdom was present, alphas in dark armor, betas whispering behind jeweled goblets, omegas standing stiffly with lowered eyes. And at the center of it all sat King Kale Draven, the Alpha King. Power clung to him like a living thing. His broad shoulders were wrapped in black ceremonial leather, silver runes etched along the sleeves. His eyes, cold, sharp, merciless, scanned the hall as if every soul inside belonged to him. Lyora felt them land on her. Her breath caught. No, please not me. She was nobody. An orphaned Omega from the border packs. No family. No allies. Invisible. That was how she survived, by not being seen. Yet fate, cruel and precise, dragged her forward. Step ahead, commanded the royal herald. The hall fell silent as Lyora's feet moved on their own. Each step echoed like a death sentence. Whispers followed her, curious, mocking, confused. Why her? She smells weak. She's barely a wolf. She stopped before the throne and bowed deeply, her hair falling like a curtain around her face. King Cal rose. The entire hall bowed instantly, but Lyora felt the weight of his presence long before she dared look up. When she did, his gaze cut straight through her. Not desire, not interest, calculation. You are Lyora of the Ashen Border, he said, voice deep enough to vibrate through her bones. Yes, my king, she whispered. A flicker of something passed through his eyes, relief. Cold, sharp relief. He turned to the crowd. By Alpha Law and Moon Decree, Kale announced, I take this Omega under royal bond. The hall exploded. Gasps. Shouts. Outrage. She's unmade. She's insignificant. This makes no sense. Lyora's ears rang. Her knees nearly buckled. Royal bond with him. Kale raised his hand and silence snapped back into place. This bond is not for love, he continued, voice like steel. It is for protection. His eyes briefly shifted, just once, to the shadows behind the throne, where another Omega stood hidden, beautiful, terrified. Lyora followed his gaze, and understanding struck her like a blade. I'm not chosen. I'm a shield. The other Omega, soft-haired, pale, glowing with rare moon scent, was everything Lyora was not. She had guards flanking her, priests hovering near, and fear trembling in her eyes. A true Omega. A target. Lyora's heart sank. King Cal stepped down from the throne and stopped inches before her. He leaned closer, so only she could hear. You will be my distraction, he murmured coldly. My false claim? My sacrifice? Her lips trembled. And if I refuse? His jaw tightened. You won't? He said. Because refusal would mean death for her. Lyora swallowed hard. The bond mark burned into her skin that night. Silver light wrapped around her wrist as Cal sealed the royal claim. The magic was ancient, unforgiving. It tied her fate to his name, his kingdom, his enemies. The crowd bowed. Long live the Alpha Queen. They chanted. The words felt like poison. That night Lyora was given a crown she never wanted, a king who never looked at her with warmth, and a role she didn't understand yet. In the royal chamber, Kale removed his cloak and turned his back to her. You will sleep here, he said. You will walk beside me in public. You will smile when ordered. He paused. And you will not fall in love with me. Lyora stared at him, pain tightening her chest. I wasn't planning to, she whispered. He didn't turn around, but something in the room shifted, dark and dangerous. Outside, thunder rolled, and far beyond the palace walls, something ancient awakened, because the pawn had been placed on the board, and the game had just begun. Blackfang Palace woke before dawn. Lyora learned this on her first morning as the Alpha Kings claimed Omega. She stood at the tall window of the royal chamber, watching the sky bleed from black to steel blue. The kingdom stretched below, spiked rooftops, winding stone streets, guard towers lit by dying torches. Somewhere beyond those walls lay the Ashen Border, the life she had lost in a single night. Behind her the bed remained untouched. King Kale had not slept beside her. He never intended to. A sharp knock echoed through the chamber. Enter, Lyora said softly. Servants poured in like a silent tide. Maids with silk dresses draped over their arms, attendants carrying jewelry, guards standing rigid near the doors. None met her eyes for long. They were afraid of her. Or worse, of what she represented. Your Majesty, a maid said, bowing. The Alpha King commands your presence at the morning council. Commands, not requests. Lyora nodded and allowed them to dress her. The gown they chose was moon, white threaded with silver that shimmered as she moved. It was beautiful, far too beautiful for someone who felt like an imposter wearing another woman's fate. When she entered the council chamber, conversation stopped. Cal stood at the head of the long obsidian table, hands braced against the surface. Alphas from every major pack surrounded him, powerful, scarred, watchful. Their eyes slid to Lyora with suspicion. This was not how a queen was supposed to arrive. You're late, Kale said flatly. I was not told the time, Lyora replied before she could stop herself. A ripple of tension spread. No one spoke to the Alpha King like that. Cal's eyes snapped to her, dangerous, sharp. Then, unexpectedly, he said, sit. The council stared as Lyora took the seat at his right hand. The queen's seat, a lie carved in stone. Reports began, border skirmishes, rogue packs, whispers of an uprising. One word surfaced again and again, Moonborn. Lyora's fingers curled in her lap. Moonborn Omegas were rare, powerful. Their blood could strengthen packs or destroy them. They were hunted, traded, used. She knew now why the other Omega hid in the shadows. Kale dismissed the council abruptly. When the chamber cleared, silence fell like a blade. You spoke out of turn, he said without looking at her. I spoke the truth, she replied. His gaze lifted slowly. Truth gets people killed. Then why choose me? She asked. Why not keep her hidden better? For the first time, something cracked through his composure. You think I haven't tried, he snapped. Assassins breached this palace twice in one moon cycle. They don't know her face, but they know mine. They watch my every move. He stepped closer. They needed to believe I've already chosen. Lyora met his eyes. So I'm bait? Yes. The honesty hurt more than cruelty would have. She swallowed. What happens when they realize I'm not the one they're hunting? Cal's voice dropped. Then I kill them first. That night, Lyora learned the cost of wearing a crown. At the royal banquet, she smiled until her cheeks ached. She danced with nobles who looked at her like prey. She endured whispers, insults masked as politeness, and jealousy sharp enough to draw blood. Kale never touched her, except when eyes were watching. His hand on the small of her back burned like a brand. His fingers at her waist were firm, possessive, convincing. Relax, he murmured through clenched teeth as they danced. They need to believe it. I know, she said, breath unsteady. You're shaking. Because I'm afraid. Good, he said quietly. Fear keeps you alive. The attack came at midnight, glass shattered. Screams ripped through the hall. Dark-cloaked wolves burst from the balconies, blades gleaming with poison. Protect the queen, someone shouted. Lyora froze. A blade flashed toward her. Cal moved. He shifted mid-stride, bones cracking, fur exploding from skin as his massive black wolf slammed into the attacker. Blood sprayed the marble floor. Chaos erupted. Lyora backed away, heart hammering, until a hand seized her arm. Not Kale. A hooded figure leaned close, eyes glowing silver. You're not the Moonborn, he whispered. But you'll do. The knife rose. Cal's roar shook the palace. The assassin's head snapped back as Cal, human again, blood-soaked, drove a blade through his chest. Silence fell. Cal turned to Lyora. His hands trembled. You're hurt, he said, voice rough. She shook her head, breath coming fast. You saved me. His jaw tightened. I couldn't let you die. Because I'm useful, she asked. For a moment, something dark and conflicted crossed his face. No, he said slowly. Because if you die, the lie dies with you. He turned away before she could answer. But later that night, alone in her chamber, Lyora pressed her fingers to the bond mark on her wrist. It was warm, pulsing, alive. And for the first time she felt it. Not power, not fear, but something dangerously close to connection. The bond should have been silent. That was what Lyora had always been told. Royal bonds were political, ancient magic bound by law and duty, not emotion. They existed to command loyalty, not hearts. Yet as dawn bled into the sky after the assassination attempt, the bond burned like living fire beneath her skin. She woke gasping. Her hand flew to her wrist, where the silver mark pulsed softly, glowing beneath her touch. With every beat of her heart, warmth spread through her veins, steady, powerful. Not painful, but intimate. Why now? The door to the chamber opened without warning. Kale stepped inside. He looked different in the early light, raw, unarmored. His black hair was loose, shadows under his eyes darker than before. Blood stained his shirt, though it wasn't all his. You should be resting, he said. So should you, Lyora replied quietly. He closed the door behind him. The click echoed too loud in the silence. I felt the bond, he admitted after a pause. Her breath hitched. You did? Yes, his jaw tightened. It shouldn't be reacting like this. No, she whispered. It shouldn't? They stood there, the air thick with things unsaid. Cal broke first. You were nearly killed because of me. You warned me, she said. You never promised safety. That doesn't absolve me. He dragged a hand through his hair. You were meant to be a symbol, a mask, nothing more. And now, she asked, his eyes lifted to hers, dark, conflicted. Now the bond is responding. Silence fell again. Lyora took a step closer before fear could stop her. What happens to me when this is over? She asked. When she's safe. When the threat is gone? Kale didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was cold. You will be released. Her chest tightened. Released, she repeated. Yes. The bond will be severed. It felt like a blade sliding between her ribs. And then, she asked, do I go back to being nothing? His gaze sharpened. You were never nothing. The words surprised them both. Cal turned away abruptly. Stay inside the palace today. Security has been doubled. He reached for the door. Kale, she said before she could stop herself. He paused but didn't turn. Do you regret choosing me? For a long moment there was only the sound of his breathing. No, he said finally. That's the problem. The palace buzzed with tension. Guards patrolled every corridor. Wolves whispered of traitors and hidden enemies. Somewhere deep within Blackfang, the real Moonborn Omega Selene remained concealed, watched by shadows and protected by lies. Lyora met Selene that afternoon. It was not by accident. She was escorted through a hidden passage beneath the palace, stone walls damp and cold, until they reached a quiet chamber lit by soft blue fire. Selene stood when Lyora entered. She was even more beautiful up close, delicate features, pale hair like spun moonlight, eyes filled with guilt. I'm sorry, Selene said immediately. Lyora blinked. For what? For your life, Selene whispered. For being the reason you're in danger. Leora studied her carefully. This was the Omega men would kill for. Wars would be waged over her blood. And yet, she looked broken. You didn't ask for this either, Leora said. Celine's eyes shimmered. He loves his people. That's why he protects me? Does he? Leora asked softly. Celine hesitated. He loves the kingdom. Love for people comes second. Something about that answer lodged deep in Leora's chest. Why did you want to see me? Leora asked. Celine stepped closer, lowering her voice. Because the bond is changing. Leora stiffened. You know about it? Moonborn blood senses magic, Celine said. Your bond is no longer purely royal, it's becoming something else. What? Leora whispered. Celine swallowed. A true mate bond. The world tilted. That's impossible, Leora said. He doesn't, he never. True bonds don't require intention, Celine said sadly. They choose. Leora staggered back, heart racing. A true mate bond meant destiny, permanence, death if severed. It meant Kale could never release her. And it meant the greatest lie in the kingdom was becoming the most dangerous truth. That night Kale shifted on the battlements beneath the moon, his massive wolf pacing like a storm caged in flesh. The bond roared inside him, pulling, demanding alive. This was not strategy. This was not control. This was instinct. And it terrified him. Because if the world learned the truth, they wouldn't come for Celine. They would come for Leora. And this time, he wasn't sure even a king could protect her. The moon was full. It hung over Blackfang Palace like a watchful eye. Silver light spilling across the battlements, the courtyards, the blood-stained memories of kings long dead. Leora could not sleep. The words true mate bond echoed in her mind like a curse and a promise tangled together. Every breath she took felt heavier, as if the bond itself was tightening, pulling her toward something inevitable. Toward him, she rose from the bed and wrapped herself in a dark cloak, slipping silently into the corridors. The palace guards bowed as she passed, calling her Your Majesty, their voices filled with respect she did not feel she deserved. She climbed the narrow stairs to the highest tower, and found Kale there. He stood at the edge of the battlement, bare-handed, the wind tugging at his dark cloak. The moonlight traced the hard lines of his face, the scars he never spoke of. He shouldn't be here, he said without turning. I could say the same, Leora replied. He exhaled slowly. You felt it too, didn't you? She stepped closer, the bond. Yes. Silence stretched between them, thick and dangerous. I met Celine, Leora said. Kyle's body went rigid. She told me what's happening. Leora continued. She told me the bond is becoming real. He turned then, eyes blazing. She should not have said anything. She was afraid. Leora said. So am I? Kyle clenched his fists. This was never meant to happen. But it is happening, Leora said softly. And we can't pretend it isn't. The wind howled between them, carrying the distant cries of wolves beyond the walls. If this becomes known, Kale said, voice low and lethal, every pack will turn against you. They will claim you manipulated me, that you used magic, that you stole what belongs to the Moonborn. And what do you believe? Leora asked, his gaze locked onto hers. I believe, he said slowly, that I am losing control. The honesty stunned her. Kyle Draven did not lose control. He was control. He could still sever it, Leora whispered. Before it completes. The bond pulsed painfully at the suggestion, heat flaring across both of them. His jaw tightened. If I do, it will tear you apart. So my life is the price of your kingdom's stability, she asked. He stepped toward her, closing the distance until she could feel his warmth, his power. No, he said fiercely. My kingdom is not worth your death. Her breath caught. You don't mean that, she whispered. I do, he said, and that terrifies me more than any war. Below them, a horn sounded low, urgent. Kyle's head snapped toward the sound. Border alarm, he said. They're testing us? Leora felt it then, a ripple through the bond, sharp and warning. Not the border, she said. Inside the palace. Too late. The air split with a scream. Kale shifted instantly, bones cracking as his wolf surged forward, massive and black as night. Leora followed, heart pounding, running toward the sound with guards flooding the corridors. They reached Celine's hidden chamber. The door was shattered. Blue fire flickered wildly, magic scorched into the stone. Guards lay unconscious, or worse. Celine knelt in the center of the room, shaking, blood streaking her arm. They found me, she sobbed. They knew I was here. Kyle shifted back, fury rolling off him in waves. Ooh. Celine looked at Leora. Her eyes were filled with horror. They weren't after me, she whispered. Leora's blood ran cold. They said. Celine continued, voice breaking. The Alpha King already chose his mate. The bond flared violently, silver light exploding across Leora's wrist. Kale turned slowly toward her, and in that moment, every lie shattered. The palace alarm screamed. Outside the walls, wolves howled, not in defense, but in challenge. War had been declared, and this time Leora was no longer a pawn on the board. She was the prize. Blackfang Palace locked itself like a clenched fist. Iron gates slammed shut. Wards flared to life along the walls, ancient symbols burning blue and silver as the kingdom prepared for siege. From the towers, horns answered horns, warning calls racing across the land. Leora stood frozen in the shattered chamber, Celine's words echoing in her skull. The Alpha King already chose his mate, chose her. Kyle moved first. Take Celine to the inner sanctum, he ordered sharply. Double guards. No one enters without my command. What about Leora? one of the commanders asked. The question sliced through the room. Every eye turned to her. Kale hesitated, just for a heartbeat. Bring her with me, he said at last. Now. They moved fast through hidden corridors, the palace no longer a place of safety but a maze under threat. Lyora felt it everywhere, in the walls, the air, the bond thrumming wildly between her and Kale like a living alarm. Kale, she said as they walked, struggling to keep pace. This is because of me. This is because of fear, he replied without slowing. And fear always looks for a scapegoat. They entered the war chamber, a circular hall carved deep into the mountain. Maps glowed on the stone table, borders marked in red, enemy packs gathering, alliances breaking. The Northern Fang Pack has declared challenge, a scout reported. So has Ironclaw. They're spreading rumors. Kel's eyes darkened. What rumors? That the Alpha King was ensnared by a false Omega? The scout said carefully. That she bewitched you. That the Moonborn was cast aside? Lyora's stomach twisted. Say it, she whispered. They're saying I stole you. Kale's fist slammed into the table, cracking stone. I was not stolen, he growled. I chose. The room went deadly silent. Lyora stared at him. So did everyone else. Kale seemed to realize what he'd said too late. His jaw tightened, but he didn't take the words back. From that moment on, the kingdom changed. Whispers followed Lyora wherever she went. Some bowed deeper than before, seeing her as a powerful queen. Others looked at her with naked hatred. She heard it all. She's an Omega who forgot her place. She'll doom us all. Kill her and the war ends. That night, Kale stood guard outside her chamber. You don't have to do this, she said softly from the doorway. I do, he replied. They will come for you. And if they're right? She asked. If my existence tears your kingdom apart. He turned to her, eyes burning. Then the kingdom will adapt. He said it will fall. Her breath caught. You would risk everything. I already have. The bond surged, fierce and undeniable. But destiny is never merciful. The attack came before dawn. A traitor opened the inner gate. Enemy wolves flooded the lower halls, steel and claws clashing with royal guards. Fire lit the darkness. Screams echoed through stone. Cal grabbed Lyora's hand. Run. I won't leave you, she said. You will. He snarled because if they capture you, they win. He shoved her toward a hidden passage. She stumbled, tears blinding her. Kale. I never planned to love you, he said, voice breaking for the first time. That was the lie. Then he sealed the door between them. Lyora screamed as the magic flared, throwing her back into darkness. She ran, through tunnels older than the kingdom, guided by instinct and the bond's pull. Behind her, Blackfang Palace burned. When she emerged into the forest beyond the walls, dawn was breaking. Smoke rose in the distance. Her bond throbbed alive, aching, terrified. Kyle was alive, but faint. And then she felt something else, a presence. Ancient, watching. From the shadows of the trees, a voice whispered, Run, little queen, or learn what you truly are. Lyora turned slowly. Golden eyes opened in the darkness, and the world shifted beneath her feet. The forest went unnaturally still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Lyora stood at the edge of the trees, smoke from the burning palace staining the sky behind her. The golden eyes in the darkness did not blink. They watched, measured, judged. Who are you? Lyora demanded, forcing her trembling legs to stay firm. A figure stepped forward, the shadows peeling away like living skin. He was tall, taller even than Kale, with silver, black hair braided down his back and markings etched into his bare arms that glowed faintly beneath the moon. His presence was ancient, heavier than the air itself. I am Eric's Nightseer, he said, last of the first alphas. Lyora's breath hitched. The first alphas were myth, gods wrapped in fur and fang, founders of the werewolf bloodlines extinct for centuries. That's impossible, she whispered. So was you. Eric's replied calmly. The bond at her wrist flared violently, reacting to him. Eric's golden eyes narrowed. Ah, so the bond has awakened. What do you want from me? Lyora asked. To remind you, he said. Of what was stolen from you. Before she could move, the forest exploded into motion. Power surged from Eric's, ancient magic cracking through the ground like lightning. Vision slammed into Lyora's mind. A child screaming as flames consumed a village. A woman with Lyora's eyes pressing a glowing mark into her wrist. A voice whispering, hide her. Seal it. Let her forget. Lyora collapsed to her knees, gasping. My blood, she whispered. What did you do to me? I did nothing, Eric said softly. Your mother did? The truth shattered her. You are not a common Omega, he continued. You are Veilborn, a bloodline erased from history. Omegas born with alpha souls. Balance incarnate. Her hands shook. Then why am I weak? Because your power was bound, Eric said. To keep you alive. The forest trembled. Your kind could bond with any alpha, he said. Not through domination but equality. That is why the mate bond formed? Lyora's heart pounded painfully. Kale didn't choose me, she whispered. The bond did. Yes, Eric said. And now the world will bleed for it. Her bond pulsed again, sharp, fading. Kale was in danger. Teach me, Lyora said suddenly, lifting her head. If I have power, I need it. Eric studied her for a long moment. Power comes at a price. He said once awakened, you can never be small again. She thought of Cal standing alone in a burning palace. Good, she said. I'm done being small. Eric's lips curved into something like approval. Then listen, he said, placing a hand over her wrist. The veil breaks tonight. Silver and gold light exploded outward, ripping through the forest and racing toward the horizon. Miles away, Kale dropped to one knee on the battlefield. The bond roared back to life, stronger, clearer, undeniable. Laura, he breathed. The enemy wolves froze, fear creeping into their eyes. Something had changed. The queen they hunted was no longer running. She was awakening. The queen who returned. The battlefield reeked of smoke and blood. Kale stood at its center, sword dripping crimson, armor cracked, lungs burning. Around him lay fallen wolves, enemy and ally alike. Blackfang Palace smoldered behind the walls, wounded but standing. He felt her before he saw her. The bond surged, no longer a flicker, but a command. A presence that steadied his breathing, straightened his spine, and filled the hollow space in his chest. She's alive, he whispered. The enemy alphas laughed nervously. Your pawn ran. One of them sneered. Your false queen fled like a... The sky split, silver, gold light tore through the clouds, descending like a blade of judgment. The ground shook as a figure stepped from the radiance. Leora. But not the Omega they remembered. Her cloak billowed like living shadow, eyes glowing with soft, lethal light. Power rolled off her in waves, calm, controlled, ancient. Every wolf felt it. Knees buckled. Alphas choked on their own dominance, forced down by something equal, not submissive, not superior, balanced. Cal stared, stunned. By the moon, someone breathed. What is she? Leora's voice carried across the field without effort. I am the queen you hunted, she said, and the end of your lies. She lifted her hand. The bond flared, linking her to Kale fully, openly, truth blazing through it. This war was built on fear, she continued, on the belief that power must be stolen or controlled. Her gaze locked onto the Northern Fang Alpha. You wanted the Moonborn. You wanted a weapon. She stepped forward. You will not have either. With a flick of her wrist, the earth surged upward, stone wrapping around the enemy Alpha's legs, locking him in place. Gasps rippled through the ranks. I offer you a choice, Leora said. Stand down or be remembered as the pack that challenged balance itself. Silence, then one by one, wolves dropped to their knees. Weapons fell. The war ended not with a roar, but with surrender. Kale moved toward her slowly, as if afraid she might vanish. Laura, he said. She turned to him, power softening in her eyes. You sealed me away to protect another, she said. You used me as a lie? I know, he said hoarsely, and I will carry that guilt for the rest of my life. She stepped closer. But you also stood alone against an army for me, she said. You chose me when it mattered. The bond hummed, complete, undeniable. I never planned to love you, Kale said, voice breaking. I planned to survive. She smiled faintly. Plans change. The palace gates opened. Wolves bowed, not in fear. That night, beneath a rebuilt moon altar, the bond completed, not as royal command, not as political lie, but as equals, Alpha King and Veilborn Queen. Together, and far away, Eric's Nightseer watched from the shadows, golden eyes satisfied. The world will never be the same, he murmured. He was right, because the pawn had become the queen, and the Alpha King had lost his heart to the one woman fate never meant him to use. The crown that burns. Peace did not arrive gently. It came like a wound stitched too fast, closed on the surface, aching beneath. Blackfang Palace was rebuilt stone by stone, ward by ward. The banners of enemy packs were lowered, their alphas forced to swear loyalty beneath the moon altar. Songs were sung of Lyora's return, of the Veilborn Queen who ended a war with a single command. But power always demands a price. Lyora felt it in her dreams. She stood in a sea of silver ash, crowns sinking beneath her feet. Voices whispered from the dark, old kings, dead queens, Veilborn ancestors who had ruled and fallen. Balance is not mercy, love is the sharpest blade. She woke each night with her wrist burning, the bond blazing too hot, too alive. Kyle noticed. You're fading, he said one evening, as they stood on the palace balcony overlooking the kingdom. The wind carried the scent of pine and smoke, home and war tangled together. I'm changing, Leora replied. There's a difference? Kale studied her carefully. Tell me what you're afraid of. She hesitated. Urix warned me, she said at last. The Veilborn were erased because we don't belong fully to any side. Not Alpha, not Omega. Then we'll make a place, Kale said without hesitation. She turned to him. You can't command balance into existence. No, he agreed. But I can stand with it. The council did not share his certainty. They fear her, one elder said bluntly. Not because she is cruel, but because she is new. She destabilizes the hierarchy, another added. If Omegas believe they can rise, they can. Kale cut in coldly. Silence slammed down. Lyora watched from the shadows, heart heavy. She did not want to shatter the world, only to exist within it. That night, Erix returned. He appeared in the moon garden, standing among the white flowers like a ghost from another age. The crown is burning you, he said calmly. Lyora folded her arms. You warned me. Yes, he said. And now you must choose. Choose what? Remain queen, Erix said, and watch the world bend painfully around you or step beyond it? Her breath caught. Beyond. The Veilborn were never meant to rule kingdoms, he said. We were meant to guard them. From the shadows, from excess, from tyranny. And Kale, she asked quietly. Erix's golden eyes softened. He cannot follow where you may go. Her heart twisted. I love him, she whispered. Erix nodded. That is why this choice matters. At dawn, Leora stood before the moon altar alone. Kale found her there. You're thinking of leaving, he said, not as a question. She turned, tears in her eyes. I don't want to tear your world apart. You are my world, he said fiercely. And that's the problem, she replied softly. No one should hold that much power over a king. The bond pulsed uncertain, strained. Cale took her hands. I was wrong once, he said. I won't be again, don't decide alone. She leaned into him, resting her forehead against his chest, memorizing the sound of his heartbeat. Above them, the moon dimmed, an omen only the old magic understood. Balance was demanding its due. And love, for the first time, might not be enough, the choice that breaks fate. The moon altar had never felt so heavy. Leora stood at its center, silver runes glowing faintly beneath her bare feet. The air hummed with old magic, the kind that remembered every choice ever made there, every oath, every betrayal, every love offered to the night. Cale stood before her, unarmored, crown set aside. Say it, he said quietly. Say what you're thinking? She met his eyes, the eyes she had learned to read better than her own fears. If I stay, she said, voice trembling but steady, the world will change too fast. Packs will fracture. Alphas will fight to control what they don't understand. And if you go? He asked. The world stays the same, she said. Safe, cruel, predictable. Cale shook his head. That's not balance, that's fear. She swallowed. If I go, I become what the Veilborn were meant to be, a guardian. Outside power, outside rule me, he said. The words hurt more than she expected. Yes, she whispered. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the thrum of the bond, uncertain, strained, aching. Cale stepped closer. You think leaving will protect me, he said. But losing you will destroy me. Her breath hitched. You survived before me. I wasn't alive before you, he replied. The bond flared painfully, reacting to the truth. Leora lifted her trembling hand and pressed it to his chest. I never planned to love you, she said softly. I planned to disappear. He caught her wrist gently. Then let's disappear together. Hope flared, bright, dangerous. You can't, she said. Your people need you. And the world needs you, he shot back. Not hidden, not sacrificed. Before she could answer, the air shifted. Eric's emerged from the shadows, expression grave. The moment has come, he said. The veil is thinning. Choose. Cale snarled. You don't get to decide her fate. No, Eric's agreed. She does. The moon dimmed further, clouds swallowing its light. The bond screamed, magic straining against destiny. Leora closed her eyes. In that darkness, she saw two futures. One where she ruled beside Cale, strong, beloved, and slowly blamed for every fracture, every rebellion. Another where she vanished, becoming legend, watching from afar as Cale aged, ruled, and eventually died. Her chest ached. When she opened her eyes, tears spilled freely. I choose, her voice broke. Kyle's grip tightened, desperate. To change fate itself. Eric's eyes widened. That path was sealed. Then break it, Leora said. She lifted her marked wrist and pressed it to Kyle's. Balance was never meant to be isolation, she said. It was meant to be shared. The runes beneath them ignited. Silver and gold light exploded upward, piercing the clouds. The bond flared, no longer royal, no longer made alone, but something new. Eric staggered back, awe and fear crossing his face. A Trian bond, he whispered. Alpha, Veilborn, Kingdom. The altar cracked. Magic rewrote itself. When the light faded, Cale dropped to one knee, not in submission but in recognition. Leora felt it, no burning crown, no consuming pull. Balance, shared, chosen. Eric bowed deeply. The world will remember this night, he said. Because fate has been wounded. Cale rose slowly, eyes shining. He said not as a command but a plea. Leora smiled through tears. I am staying. Above them, the moon blazed brighter than it had in centuries. And somewhere deep in the bones of the world, destiny screamed. One and adapted, the Alpha King and his queen. The morning after the Trian bond was unlike any dawn in Blackfang's history. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and smoke, of battles won and alliances reforged. Birds sang cautiously, as if aware that the world had shifted beneath their wings. The palace itself seemed to breathe, a living monument to survival, magic, and the choices of one Omega who refused to remain small. Leora stood on the balcony overlooking the kingdom. Beside her, Cale did not need to speak. The bond pulsed between them, a living, shared heartbeat, not dominance, not fear, not obligation. But connection. The council will be uneasy, Cale said quietly, resting his hand over hers. His thumb brushed the bond mark, now glowing softly in silver, gold light. They'll adapt, she replied. They have no choice. Kyle nodded. Good, but I'm curious. What will you do now, Queen Veilborn? She smiled faintly, lifting her chin to meet the rising sun. I will lead. Protect Teak and love. But I will never be anyone's pawn again. Kyle's lips quirked, a rare smile breaking through the armor of his usual cold control. I like that answer. Below, wolves stirred in the courtyards, alphas, betas, and omegas alike. They looked at Leora not as a pawn, not as a lie, but as a queen who had returned stronger than any story ever told. Selene emerged from the inner sanctum, eyes wide but reverent. She bowed deeply to Leora. I understand now, she whispered. You were always meant for this. Leora nodded. And you, she said gently, will always be protected. Cale's hand tightened over hers. The war is over, he said. But our lives, they begin anew. Leora leaned closer, resting her forehead against his chest. The bond pulsed in tandem with his heartbeat, warm, alive, perfect. We face death, she murmured. We face destiny. And yet we are here. Kyle's lips brushed her hair. Because we survived together, he said. Because we chose each other. For the first time, Lyora felt the full weight of being queen, not as a pawn, not as a shield, but as a woman who held her fate in her own hands. The world could challenge her, the old magic could tremble. Even the gods could argue, but beside Kale, she was unstoppable. And Kale, the Alpha King who never planned to love her, who thought her a mere distraction, he had lost his heart completely. They stayed like that for a long moment, silhouettes against the rising sun, the palace behind them and the kingdom stretching endlessly beyond. For Lyora and Kale, love was no longer forbidden. Power was no longer a burden. Fate itself had bent to their will. The pawn had become the queen. The Alpha King had become hers. And Blackfang would never be the same again.